We're continuing our Bible series. This one's really easy. It's my favorite Corinthians quote. It's the whole reason I have solved the whole "in love is love reflected." So I'm going to read this to you first. It says, "When I was a child, I talked like a child, I felt like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection, as in a mirror." Hope you're paying attention. "Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." This is the key to a non-dual perspective. This is the key to understanding that everything is a mirror. This is the key that basically says that the only darkness you're ever going to see are your unresolved childhood traumas. Plain English. Plain English. If you understand the Bible, that is what it is saying. The only thing you will see is that in darkness is your unresolved childhood traumas. It is up to you to grow up and think like a man, not a child, so that you can see yourself in the mirror and recognize yourself as one, not two. Love is self-recognition. It is not a division. It is not wanting to own someone. It is not forcing your agenda on something. A lot of the times what's happening is, in a trauma bond, you are confusing your love for the broken aspects of yourself as love. And those are childhood ways that you haven't yet let behind. So the immaturity of human relationships are based on the fact that they haven't healed themselves. Period. That's it. You are fully known. When you use the mirror, you will understand the most important thing, because there is no specialness of being in love. And that specialness of being comes from understanding that the mirror holds true for everybody. An act of love is an act of self-recognition. It's an act of self-recognition. It is not the forcing of anything. So, in other words, if you love yourself fully, and by self, I mean you understand that all of your experiences were great, not something you fear. You have transcended this idea that there's something wrong with you, because there isn't. You've transcended this idea that you're not worthy because it's impossible. You're the entire universe at once. It's impossible. So you have to transcend the human condition that says that you are not everything, that you're somehow unworthy. Those are all limiting beliefs and played out scripts. You use the mirror properly, and you will understand everything in life, because everything is a reflective surface for you to see inside yourself, and every human being simply shows you what you're being on the inside. And with that clarity, you are always known to yourself. Always. You're never confused. A non-dual perspective, you see, a non-dual perspective is the easiest thing to understand if you know yourself and you appreciate your experiences and you're not condemning your experiences and you're mindful of your thoughts and you understand that everything is a walking thought bubble and all that you are doing is recognizing points of perception. And in recognizing them, rather than treating them as separate, you are being love. And that's how you solve the mystery. In love is love reflected. It's that simple. No one wants the mirror once they understand the mirror. They use the mirror strictly to consume 3D properly, and they make their own luck based on their understanding of it. Okay? You have two options. You are your own luck maker. You have two options. One is to understand that you assign meaning to everything. That when God said, hey, Adam, I'm going to take you around and you can name everything in Eden, that is a state that you have and have always had. And your inability to realize that you assign meaning to things is the only reason that you would not understand that you are in heaven while on earth. It's the only reason. Because you're forgetting the tenet there that said, I hate Adam, which is mankind. You have the right to name things. You assign meaning. Okay? That's first and foremost. Secondly, if you understand the mirror and all of the ways that it can show up, there are 7 different combinations of things that make different patterns that will show you into yourself. But in every single instant, you are seeing parental mirrors, your current state of mind, your past state of mind, things that you wish you had, future state of mind, the addiction mirrors. You're seeing all kinds of things, and every single one of these mirrors serve you. If you understand all 7, you understand where you are at all times. You will be a grown-up, not a child, having childlike relationships. You'll have grown-up relationships that recognize themselves in the mirror. You act as one, not two. That's actual love. That's actual love, you guys. Love recognizes itself in the mirror, therefore it doesn't long for the reflection. I said this earlier today. I said, do you know how silly it is for some of you guys when you long for these things outside instead of recognizing that it's you? How silly it is. It's like going up to the mirror in my bathroom and arguing with my reflection and telling my reflection that I need it to want me. That I need it, that I've got this thing where I need it to want me, or I'm longing for the reflected image rather than realizing that I'm outside of that. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. That's why it's ungodly to want. It's ungodly to want because God knows it is everything, therefore it knows that the outside is the inside of its own body and that its job is to make sure that everything remains on what looks like outside so that the universe can carry out our desires on autopilot. These things they're all available to you if you understand who you are. You don't want. You actually love human beings, and if you actually love human beings, you recognize yourself within them. You do not treat them as separate, therefore you wouldn't long to want them. Why would you want them? If it's a reflective surface of you, it automatically gets rid of the want. If you apply this properly, you will know how to love, and love is the answer to everything. If you don't apply this properly, you don't know how to love, and therefore you are longing, wanting, and being ungodly. That's a non-dual principle. That when you understand Corinthians, when you apply this and you understand it to be a mirror, and you actually use these words and you live them and you apply them, you will see how it works. There's no way around it. None. Zero zilch. So, if you truly love someone, what are you doing? You are recognizing yourself in the mirror. That's it. You are recognizing yourself in the mirror and allowing that reflection to guide you so you can see inside your head and make sense of what's happening. And then you know what to do next based on what? On what the mirror is showing you in the moment. You're not avoiding the mirror at all. You're not being childish with the mirror at all. You're not concerned about what it's showing you because you understand what it's showing you. And as a result, you know how to behave. There's no longing in that. There's none at all whatsoever. Okay? But you guys have to understand it from my perspective. I'm on the other side. I see this, and I just can't even imagine going up to the mirror and being like, I need you to want me. That's not what the divine feminine does. That's not what the divine feminine does. The divine feminine knows she is everything. Therefore, she's not doing any longing at all. The masculine, what it does is it picks up the vibe, okay, recognizes the source of its desire, and it makes the effort. What are we doing? We're recognizing ourselves in the mirror. That's it. So if this person, whoever this person is, doesn't treat us as well as we treat ourselves, they don't make the cut. Because we're recognizing ourselves in the mirror. And that's all that we're doing. That's why you fall in love with yourself first. Because there's no other way to recognize yourself in the mirror. What's going to happen is you're going to be tempted, because these forces run on autopilot. You're going to be tempted to complete yourself. You're going to be attracted to qualities of the things that you've forgotten that you are. The opposite thing. This creates a polarized union. And if you don't understand how to use the mirror, okay, it's the perfect storm for a trauma bond. But if you understood the trauma bond, you can actually correct the trauma bond. You won't even need the practice to begin with in the first place. You have to know yourself. There's no way around that. You have to understand, respect, and love all of your experiences, because your mind, your subconscious mind, makes these patterns for you. And then you see yourself in the mirror. That's it. So if you do not apply Corinthians, then you're not being love. If you see separate beings, you're not being love. If you've forgotten that that is your child Christ, you're not being love. If you're wanting, obsessing, and driving yourself nuts because you wish you had somebody, you are being the opposite of love. We call that hatred. It creates a division where there is none, rather than recognizing itself in the mirror, because that's what Corinthians calls us to do. Recognize ourselves in the mirror. That's the non-dual truth. Everything outside is a giant time-space mirror that shows your multidimensional self to you. Understanding how all the components work will allow you to recognize yourself everywhere. This leads to source perspective, because source understands that the only thing on display is them in every direction. But that's how they function. It's how you function in everyday life. You'll never be confused about where you are. You're never worried about what somebody will think. You're never worried about any of these things. No, because you understand yourself as source, and you understand the objective of the game is for you to love yourself and for you to enjoy your experiences and to remember that you're looking in the mirror. And that's it. If you remember that you're looking in the mirror and you treat everything like a mirror, but you remember you're the source, so you don't have these outside idols, then you have no problems. Everything wants you. Why? Because it's the law of reverse effort. It's the law of reverse effort, and it works. If it works one way, it works the other way. If you don't make the effort, the universe makes the effort. And understanding that is key. Understanding how to love everything is key. Understanding that love is nothing more than recognizing yourself. It is never forcing people into place. It's never wanting this or that. All of that becomes unnecessary. For example, if you want friends, it is more important that you learn to be a good friend and that you do actions that are aligned with being a good friend. You do those actions first, because you got to be what you want to receive, and then the mirror matches you. But if you continue to want and you don't practice being a good friend, then you are technically the deficit, are you not? And so when people start to fall away and you wonder why, it's quite simple, because you're not being a good friend. You got to be what you want to receive. Jot that down. When it comes to love, love is simply self-recognition in the mirror. Anything else is not love. It's not. That's how you recognize that you are source. There is no specialness of being. There is nothing else. You are the constant. And if you're not in love with yourself, that is a very hard place to be. because there's nowhere to run. In every city, in every country, you will be surrounded by only yourself. And so you had best love you, because that's the only thing that's on display in the mirror. Understanding week 11 of the Gospel of Thomas in our mastermind class was key. It says, at first you were two, then you became one, and then you returned to being two, but what will you do? That's basically saying, from the truth of your perspective, you are non-dual. But you will return to a dual illusion where you must behave. What are you going to do now that you know that you are non-dual? How are you going to behave? That is a very important question. Because learning to distinguish what's real from what is not, and learning how to be in the world and not of it, is what leads to your liberation. It leads to being unlimited. And as an unlimited being, you don't have poverty constructs. You don't have these desires for silly things that aren't even out there. You have understood you are all things. This is what liberates you. This is what brings the money. This is what brings the friendships. This is what brings everything to you on autopilot. I'm not making this up. This is how it works. It's how it works. First, you got to be love. First, you actually have to embody those words. That scripture is key. It's absolute key to understanding what love is, and love isn't forcing anyone. Love isn't forcing anyone. Recently, someone said that. They're like, I don't want to be controlled. I was like, spoken like a classic wounded person that would say something like that. It's not about control. In love, you would know it has nothing to do with control at all. You fall in love with yourself, and you watch and see who matches those actions and who aligns with that. That's who you keep around. If they don't match, they don't belong. It's not personal. It's not anything. We don't want anybody who doesn't want us. If they're not striving to show us how much we mean to them, and next. I'm sorry, the divine feminine, that's not how she operates. She magnifies what is given. You get a house, we make it a home. You give us sex, we make a baby. We magnify what is given, but we never overcompensate for what has not been given. It is not smart business, okay, to chase and want someone that doesn't want you. That's the equivalent of paying your employees for not doing any work. It's not smart business. We don't do that. That's not how it works. We're not trying to control anything at all. We simply want to align with whoever of their own free will shows us that they have recognized themselves in the mirror, and they show us how they want. They show us how they want to keep us, whether or not they want to keep us. You let that run. You give that the absolute freedom. This is not something you force. This is not something you nag. Nagging is being in your masculine. It's emasculating of the masculine. It's not cool. It's not cool. And I believe me when I say grown-ass men will agree with me right now. They will tell you, I do not need your guidance on how to take care of you. Because if I wanted to, I would. Grown-ass men, they know that. It is emasculating to do that. You are simply recognizing yourself in the mirror, and that's what they're doing. They're recognizing their source of their desire in the mirror. And they're looking for the partner that is most like them, that makes them feel peaceful and happy and content. And then also serves as a wise counsel. They're looking for their best friend. And if this person is driven and just as driven as they are, they're going to build an empire together. They're going to leave generational wealth together. They're going to push each other for better. So they're not picking just anybody. They're looking for themselves just as much as you are looking for yourself. So it's really key to understand who you are and to recognize yourself in the mirror, because that's what love is. It's not forcing anyone. It never will be. It never will be, you guys. It never will be. The liberation comes from knowing who you are and understanding how the mirror works. Because no one condemns their world when they understand it. When you hear conspiracy theorists and people like this talking about, "Ooh, I'm armed for all the evil in the world," they haven't understood that the evil that they're seeing is the evil they've got inside their story. And since they believe that story, that's what they're going to see, and they're the source of that. So they're not helping anything by embodying said evil and then working against their own image. Again, it's self-recognition. If you use the words will reveal their mysteries to you. I live this. This is why I know no other way. I apply these words, and this is what set me free. This is the reason I have no more desires. For what? For what? The only thing I do now is help you all understand the mirror so you too can be liberated. And once you let go of those desires and you start working with some actual spiritual understanding, what moves your spirit when you're in love? That should be your goal. And that's it. Love recognizes itself everywhere. It is never lost. So you guys haven't solved that. How can God appear everywhere at once? How is it that God is everywhere? Well, it's real simple. Only love is real. There is nothing else. You are little patterns of love. That's it. And then you wear a universal costume that Christ wore, which is called abandonment, rejection, humiliation, betrayal, and injustice. All of you wear those costumes. What you did with it decided the shape of your body, decided your experiences, and added to the collective knowledge. All of that runs on autopilot. You're not special in any way in that sense. All of that runs on autopilot. What I mean by you're not special is your hardship isn't any more hardship than somebody else's hardship. It may be in varying degrees, okay? But we all go through the exact same thing. So then what's more important is to figure out what your unconscious behaviors were in those scenarios so that you can undo them, so you can take off the Christ human costume and be unafraid in the world and able to love because you recognize yourself everywhere. Christ, having taken off his human costume, realized he was one with his consciousness, that he was one with his Father. That is everybody's job. Everybody's. It's the highest form of consciousness, is to realize you take responsibility for your life, for your actions. You see yourself as God and you recognize God everywhere. That is the highest spiritual evolution you can possibly reach. There you are. You have understood yourself as source, and that's the only place I transmit at. And I'm very absolute about it. And a lot of people don't understand this level of awareness because they're not there yet. They haven't figured out they're the constant. Don't worry, you will eventually get there where you realize you are the constant. There is no other. Your point of perception is important, but it is far more important to understand that you are the source of everything you see and start behaving like love, because if you don't renew your mind, you do not see the new world. You're slacking, my brother and sister. You're slacking if you don't renew your mind. You don't see a new world. If you don't recognize yourself everywhere, you're not being love. If you're condemning your creation, talking about, oh, our world is fucked up, well, you're looking at your own fucked upness and judging it instead of loving it. A true initiate recognizes itself everywhere, therefore doesn't condemn its reflection. Recognizes all the trauma that they had as a childhood. They're not even upset anymore about this trauma because they've understood that it's just the universal pattern. So they've universally forgiven the things, so they shouldn't be afraid anymore. And that's what allows them to take off their costume and realize their true nature as God. That should be your goal. Period. Because your true nature isn't limited. Your true nature is aware that it has everything. Your true nature can use people as portals. Your true nature can pull money out of thin air. Your true nature can heal the sick. Your true nature makes sure you never get a cold. Look at me, dude. I'm like oh my God, you guys, I don't get sick. Not in this way. Whole household, people falling all down. They've got colds and flus. Not I. Not I. 35 years and counting. Not I. Okay? Understand, when you apply these truths, when you literally apply the words, you will understand the difference between false prophets and real prophets, because you serve as proof. You serve as proof. That is the most important thing. If you're not serving as proof, then you don't know the words. You just hear them and you think you understand them. But until you serve as proof, once you serve as proof, there's no going back. You understand it. And the most important thing to understand in this life right now is to understand how you're one with everything and how you're looking in the mirror. And rather than condemning it, do you realize every time you feel hatred for another person, you're technically hating yourself? And in that moment when you're spewing all that hatred and all that stuff and all that nonsense, that technically you're the evil, you're the devil in this equation. And you're spewing that hatred because you think you're seeing someone else. And so by being hateful, you feel justified, right? But you are the source of that hatred. You're not recognizing yourself in the mirror. You're not following Corinthians in that moment if you do that. I recognize myself everywhere. That's why I don't change how I speak. Even when you guys argue with me, I'm like, I remember when I was you. You're just not there yet. You'll get it eventually. Why? Because you're gonna get it eventually. I don't have time to argue. Okay? That whole African proverb where the tiger got in trouble for arguing with the donkey. I'm not gonna argue with the donkey. I'm saying that once you start literally applying these words, you cannot deny, because the truth reveals itself. If you don't apply these things, however, you can't see. But the craziest thing about non-duality is this. It's that it is most convincing through your eyes. You think you see another. But if you applied everything that you're learning in my classroom, you would know exactly what you're seeing, and you would not see another. And you know exactly what to do. Why? Because you'd have the peace that transcends all understanding. And it doesn't matter what someone says to you, because in every instance you know that, and you know how it's serving you. So even if they said something that you don't agree with, it's like you just smile. And you still provide guidance as best you can. Whether they take it or not doesn't matter. Usually I say things that people want to argue for their limitations, and I already know what they're doing, and I don't argue with them for that. I just know they're wrong. Because no one who knows who they are argues for their limitations. Hence why I don't argue for their limitations. I just simply keep reminding them, you are much bigger than you think you are. You should not be limited. And usually people want to argue with that rather than accept what I'm saying. And then they're like, oh, I just don't believe you, or I just don't agree. That's okay. That's okay. I dropped the seed, and that's all that matters. Eventually you guys catch on. I promise you. But true love is self-recognition. It is one, not two, and therefore it does not want to force anything in its place. It knows exactly who it is, and it's able to be present in every single moment because the only thing on display is the undivided God. And that is the truth of everyone's existence, whether they accept it or not. It doesn't matter. There is only God in this world, and being able to see one, not two things is key to getting into heaven. Because you're there now, and the only thing locking you out is your inability to see one thing. If you see me and a universe, you see two things. That's not correct. So the way that you want to understand it, the way that you want to simplify it, because we want to make non-duality easy, right? We want to take this thousands of years of our Indian counterpart and our heritage that they offer you, and you want to apply that to yourself, right? You want to take those thousands of years and clear that up. You want to use this to your advantage. Take the advantage. And the way that you can do that is to think of it as a mirror. You want to use the Corinthians teaching and understand that it's a mirror. So let's think about that. If I were looking at you right now, okay, whatever I see outside, I know there's an object and its perceiver. It looks like two things, but I am aware that because it's a reflective surface, it is not. It is one thing. It's just what my eyes reflect back to me in the mirror. And they're pointing back in, not out. And although it looks like I'm seeing outside, I am looking at a reflection, just like Corinthians says. I see in part now in the mirror. See? You guys, I promise you, if you start applying these words, you will have liberation. But if you don't apply these words and you don't understand that the book is a universe, it's like a guide, so you can have the whole universe to yourselves. You can enjoy it. It's the best thing in the world. But if you don't apply these words, you'll never discover your own inheritance. I only know this for a fact because I apply these words. That and God showed me behind heaven. Showed me behind the veil. I can't unsee that now. You know? I got it on good authority on how it works because I was shown behind the veil. Okay? And so now I can take these words that are written for our advantage and actually use them. It literally tells you it's a mirror, you guys. Like, come on, it says it. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. It's written. It's written. I've never lied to you. I've only told you what God said. I just helped you understand what it was saying. Please Google it. You guys use it in your marriages all the time. Anyone that actually uses those words and uses them for their marriage should not be divorced right now. They should understand that they were looking at themselves in a mirror and been one, not two. When you're one, not two, you're incapable of arguments. Because they get resolved. So no one who actually paid attention, and almost everyone uses this at their wedding ceremony. They start with love is patient, love is kind, love is all this. They read this whole thing and yet they don't use it. It's literally telling you it's a mirror. It's even saying at first you're like this little kid who reasons like a little kid, and that's the shadow that you're seeing. That's why you don't understand and see yourself. It literally says that in scripture. And if you apply it, my God, you'd be free. You'd be free. You'd know who you are. You'd know who you are. You would know that you are love itself. And love itself doesn't question its worth. It doesn't need people to like it. It's a mirror. What do I need that for? I already got my own love. Right? I already got it. All I got to do is recognize my love everywhere in the mirror. And then you find heaven. Then you realize that you've never left heaven. That your pure state of mind is one of self-recognition. You are Eden all the time. So what happens to the individual that knows that? Well, everywhere they walk, people start paying attention. You provide a shelter because you can then explain these things, and then people want to know, hold on, how do I apply that? Because I like that. That makes sense. It speaks to your soul. Someone who knows that is love in action, and love in action is motivated by love and nothing else. Now, how you guys choose to express that is totally up to you. That is not me. I don't need you to be like me. I just know that there is a huge discrepancy in the world because people have not understood what the words mean and therefore are suffering. They're longing. They're having outside idols rather than realizing that it's a reflective surface and that the inside is technically a reflection. That everything I see outside is a reflection of my inner world. And if I use that and I'm not separate, my ability to see one, not two, my ability to look in the mirror and recognize myself, that is God. That's why it says at the end of Corinthians, you got faith, you got trust, but the greatest of all things is what? Love. And that is you. That's how you figure it out. And love is love reflected. There is no other. There is no other. I know I sound like a crazy person. I keep saying the same thing over and over again because I'm trying to drop seeds. I'm trying to drop seeds of awareness. I'm trying to end suffering, limitation, worry. You're not supposed to worry day and night about what you wear. Okay, that was last week's lesson. What you wear in this particular case is the external circumstances. And fear and worry create imaginary obstacles that if you were not fearful and worried and you turn that around, you would create stepping stones. Because faith and fear are the same thing. It's the same imaginary substance, except in one you're believing and arguing for your limitations, and in the other you're believing on the fact that you're not limited, in pushing that to see how far you can get. So there's a difference. I'm offering you guys liberation while alive. Freedom from being triggered, freedom from wanting things that aren't even healthy, understanding what drives your desires, learning the difference between your flesh and your spiritual desires, because your fleshly desires will kill you. Like a fleshly desire might love alcohol and drugs, right? And a spiritual one doesn't. Why? Because a spiritual one would understand I have a responsibility to the soul inside my body to be good to this body first. And then because I'm undivided and I'm love, I have a responsibility to treat everyone else the way I treat myself. And that's being love. And that's it. Those are the two things I've got to do. And in every instance, if I can remember that we're trying to like bust people out of limited ideas and they're going to meet us with some resistance and they're going to argue their point, don't argue their point. Don't worry about that. Just keep believing and keep it moving. Be love. Remind them of how special they are. Dare not to hate your world. I don't have that animosity anymore. I need you guys to understand that. I don't have this. There's no revenge. For what? If everything served me to get to this point so I could wake up. I love my world. I can't even imagine going, this world sucks. No, it does not. It only mirrors me, so what I'm saying sucks is me. That's not love. It's not love at all. I don't know how else to keep painting that picture, but I'm going to keep talking to you guys about non-duality in a simple and easy to understand way. And for those of you that are Christian, non-duality is the concept where God says, I cannot be divided. So if God says I am all things, both the good and the evil, and I cannot be divided, I am all things, it means there is nothing else. That is the ability to see one thing, not two. And so for everyone that doesn't understand the connection, I'll bridge the divide. Okay, I bridge the divide between Eastern and Western philosophy. I can actually see that every religion is more like those Russian dolls. Those Russian dolls, you guys, you seen those Russian dolls? And the little dolls inside of the little doll and the little doll until they have, and it's all one big doll. Okay, that's what religion is like to me. They all lead to the same place, absolute same place. But you want to start applying, you want to learn how to do this. Corinthians, that particular passage in Corinthians is one of the most important things you can do to liberate yourself from desires. It's one of the most important things you can do as a divine feminine is understand you are the whole thing at once. Learn how to work with the mirror because you are watching things on autopilot. Everyone is innocent, and when you understand how the mirror works, you won't condemn the autopilot. You will actually appreciate the autopilot for showing you what to do next in the moment. And so, even if someone attacks, you actually understand the attack to be the autopilot injustice wound. And so what do? You autopilot and correct yourself, and you appreciate the messenger because you just liberated Christ from its human costume. If you understand what you're doing. There's so much more I can share with you guys. I'm not going to drive you guys crazy. All I'm going to say is, if you learn to apply Scripture, you will be free. Promise you that. You have not left Eden. You are Eden right now. And understanding the mirror means everything to you. I promise. You need source perspective. It's the only fish you want to hook. It's the only thing that matters, okay? Source perspective is, let's say that every other desire are like golden eggs. And although they're great, they're still the eggs. Source perspective is having the goose that lays all the eggs. You want the goose, not the eggs. Yeah? All right. It doesn't drive me crazy because it helps me to understand better. Carla, thank you so much, Mama. I really appreciate that. Okay, guys. I'll see everybody in class on Saturday, but that is going to be joining us. Otherwise, I will be talking to you guys soon. Thank you so much for listening. Please bear in mind that passage in Corinthians means everything to you. You want a non-dual perspective. A non-dual perspective is the shortcut. It's the shortcut to having everything on earth, because you just do it through recognition. All right. Love you guys.